Good morning. Today I want to tell you how we met the challenge of making two additional aircraft in a matter of 20 days. There was fever and tension in the Hawk hangar of HAL. The production year was nearing end. The production target of the year had been met, but some pending issues, snags on the accepted aircraft had to be cleared to ferry out the aircraft to their bases. We got information that the CEO of the division was visiting the hangar, to assess the capability of the hangar to produce two additional aircraft in a very short period of 20 days. The company was falling short of achieving the sales target for the year. So to overcome that, he wanted the production of two additional aircraft. He had faith in Final Assembly and its team to bail out the division. So he was here to meet the team and the general manager and discuss the possibility. It was a big challenge to deliver two additional aircraft in that production year. There was only 20 days left for the production year to end. It was like playing a 20-over match of cricket after completing a 50-over match, all on the same day. I do not know who gave the idea to the CEO that the additional two aircraft could be produced in a matter of 20 days. Under normal circumstances, it takes around 20 days for one aircraft in final assembly to be assembled, tested, and then test flown. The employees were a tired lot at the end of the production year, having completed the yearly task. They were eagerly waiting for a break from the daily rigorous schedule. I thought it was totally ridiculous even to think of producing additional two aircraft in such a short notice. My senior officers were consulted first, and they vehemently opposed the idea. They declared that it was not feasible for final assembly to carry out such voluminous work in such a short period. They advised me also to tell the same if the CEO consulted me. I was also not sure if I could carry out such a feat. Preparing the aircraft in a short interval of time was no easy task. Quality was paramount. I was worried if quality would suffer in the rush of completing the task in time. I was a bit surprised when my CEO approached me directly and put the same proposal to me. Would it be possible for the team to complete it in time? He asked. He wanted an honest opinion. But from the tone of his voice, I could make out that he was desperate to hear a yes from me. I was hesitant to say yes. My mind was contemplating what all measures I would have to take if I agreed to this request. Once I made the commitment, there was no going back. The CEO had belief in me. He would, I presumed, announce in corporate meetings and to the IF of meeting the new sales target on my assurance. But I wanted to be a little more pragmatic. I did not want to say an outright yes. I told my CEO that I would give it a try, since I had never done an aircraft in 10 days. I would do my best, I promised him. Our CEO assured us of all help or his personal intervention if required to complete the task. He asked me to update him regularly on the progress of work. He left the hangar in anguish and somewhat concerned. When I broke the news to my colleagues and employees, there was mixed reaction. Some of my employees were asking me if I was in my senses to give a try. They asked me to tell the CEO that it was not possible. I had annoyed my superiors also by agreeing to take up the challenge. I was feeling lonely. But there was a silent group which supported me and told me to go ahead. Give your best and leave the rest to the Almighty, they said. That was what the Gita of the Upanishads also tell us. I was feeling dizzy. I had a very short time. I had to explain what I had committed to my CEO. I had to convince my team to give it a try. I made out a list of activities which I had to do and the expected date of completion. I stuck the list to the front fuselage of the aircraft to be produced. Slowly, a crowd gathered near the aircraft to read out the list. Some of them were laughing out loud. I could hear them talking to their friends how absurd the content of the list was. Engine ground run on the 5th day, test flight on the 9th day, and acceptance sortie on the 10th day. All that seemed ridiculous. My head was spinning. I had no senior to help. I had taken this as a personal challenge, so I had to plan and execute every event all by myself. The first thing that came to my mind was to start third shift work. I had earlier experienced of running 3 shifts. I knew if I could properly plan the work in third shift, I would stand to gain extra 8 hours of silent, undisturbed work. Hurriedly, I called for a meeting with all the stakeholders, including the representatives of employees, inspection staff, methods, materials manager, and the maintenance manager. I was apprehensive of employees coming to work in third shift. But as it turned out, the employees were fully supportive, cooperative of the management's effort to shore up the production. They were more concerned about employees' welfare requirements in the third shift. They wanted special bus to be arranged to drop people from their homes after the shift closed at 7 a.m. in the morning. Snacks had to be arranged for employees working in third shift. The employees were asking for emergency medical van in the third shift. All these were acceptable to me and the management. The government inspectors were consulted next if they could come in odd hours for inspection work on aircraft. They agreed, provided vehicle was provided. All that was acceptable to our management. Next, we asked the progress department to collect all the kits of the aircraft and place them in racks near the aircraft. The progress team agreed to do so. The maintenance manager was told to check up if the testers and gauges were due for calibration and also inform us the status of serviceability of hydraulic and electrical power rigs. I could make out that there was an air of positivity in the hangar. They were all eager, ready to take up the challenge. I had a personal talk with my system lead also. I discussed with them what and when to carry out the tests. That night, the technicians completed the mating of the wing assembly to the coupled fuselage. The next morning, the tailplanes were installed. Avionics LRUs were installed next. Electrical power supply to the aircraft was given by evening time. We had an informal talk with all the electricians to carry out the radio, navigation, and other electrical system checks whenever they found a gap between the major system checks, that is, the hydraulics, fuel, and flight control system checks. The technicians did not complain. The fuel system checks was to be started next. Normally it takes 2 days for the fuel system checks to be completed. If any snags were encountered, that would take additional time. I had talked to the fuel system lead technician. He was in full spirits. He told me that he would complete the task and then only he would go home. He assured me that he would stand the whole night if required to complete the job. When I came to the office the next morning, I was surprised to find my fuel system lead still working on the aircraft. He had stayed awake the whole night, completed all the checks, and kept the system ready for inspection. Wonderful things were happening to the hangar. It gave impetus to the next two groups, that is the flight control groups and the hydraulic group, to complete their rigging of control surfaces and carry out undercarriage and flap operations. The two groups confabulated with each other. The control group carried out rigging activities in the daytime and gave it to the hydraulics group to continue their checks in the night. I had never seen such accommodation and understanding between the two groups as I could see now. By evening of the fourth day, both the hydraulic systems and the control systems were ready for inspection. The same night, engine was installed to the aircraft. By now, word had spread around the factory that a miracle was indeed in the making in final assembly. The team was all geared up to complete the task in time. The other surprising fact was that there were minimal snags encountered on the aircraft. It reminded me of the adage, God helps those who help themselves. However, I kept reminding myself and my team leads to clear snags right away and not wait till the end when the aircraft flight preparations were to be started. Sometimes aircraft checks would be completed, but snags would be still pending till such time that some some advisor or supervisor followed up. The CAO came to the hangar again to witness the developments at close hand. He told me to keep the good work going as the job was not complete yet and that we still had to complete the remaining tests and fly the aircraft. My seat safety group was equally enterprising. I had told the group not to expect extra time for their equipping work in the cockpit and canopy. They had to do their cockpit work whenever the cockpit was not engaged. The following evening, the aircraft seat was temporarily installed and the aircraft kept ready for engine ground run. Things were hotting up in the hangar. Now it was the turn for the power plant group. They were eagerly waiting for the aircraft to reach engine ground run stage. Now when the turn came to give their full support, they were complaining. Why was the aircraft given to them so late in the day? It meant working the whole night to carry out all the engine-related tests prior to engine ground run. They complained that the aircraft was given to them in the evening hours most of the time. It took an hour of our precious time sitting with the group and trying to assuage their feelings and giving hope that we'll give the next aircraft to the power plant group in the morning hours only. When I reached the office the next morning, I was in for another surprise. The aircraft was already parked in the ground run point. That meant the aircraft was ready for ground run. That day, I called all my lead technicians to witness the engine ground run. They came with their tools so that they could clear any hydraulic or fuel leaks as and when it occurred during the engine ground run. The engine ground run was time consuming but passed off well by afternoon. However, one last run had to be given after the engine oil filters replacement. That was planned after the final seat and canopy installation. The next activity was to install the seat before sunset. The seat safety team was not going to disappoint us. They had kept the seat and canopy ready for installation. The aircraft was moved from the engine ground run point to the seat installation bay. The seat was installed and installation completed. The canopy was then checked for proper locking and unlocking of the canopy locks. Next, the government inspector was called in to inspect the installation of seat and canopy. He did his checks and cleared the installation, though he was complaining of being called late in the afternoon. I had told all my inspectors and system leads to prepare a list of pending snags that had to be cleared. Now I decided to stay overnight and personally supervise all the snags to be cleared. We worked through the night and sometime between 5 and 6 hours of the morning, we had cleared all the snags. Next, I wanted to complete the engine ground run, the final engine ground run check. The morning was cold and people were tired. The employees did not want to take the aircraft out for engine ground run. I had to use all my professional skill and personal rapport with my employees to make them to agree to carry out the ground run. I got some snacks and hot coffee to shore up their energy. Finally, at 7 a.m. of the morning, at the break of dawn, my employees carried out the engine ground run. All was fine. There were no snags on the engine side. Now only a DI check and an airworthiness certificate was pending prior to initial sortie. I left for home exhausted. I told my colleagues to take over and complete the pending job. I told them that I would be back to the office in the afternoon. The aircraft hopefully could fly in the afternoon hours. I had barely reached home when my general manager started calling me up. I told him that I had just reached home after working the whole night and that the aircraft was fit for flight. But he would not listen. He wanted me to be present in the hangar as the CEO was visiting the hangar. That day, on the ninth day, the aircraft did the initial sortie. The CEO shook hands with everyone, but the job was not completed yet. After the aircraft landed, the pilots reported vibrations and noise in the cockpit. The hangar was tense again. Having worked so hard, we did not want to fail in getting the aircraft cleared. We called in the experts from methods inspection and from the engine factory to clear the snag. The engine expert felt that the problem was in the engine side, so wanted the engine to be removed and to be sent to engine factory. But if that recommendation were to be accepted, it would consume another 2 days and we would face the consequence of not producing the aircraft within the production period. There would be a deficit in sales target as it would not be counted in the present year sales. I had encountered similar problems during Jaguar aircraft production. The swirling air in the water extractor of the aircraft air conditioning system used to cause noise in the cockpit. I suggested changing the water extractor and giving it for another ground run. But the pilots were not in agreement with me. They said the noise level was high and would not take my argument. Finally, it occurred to me that the engine noise and the water extractor noise could be in resonance and so producing that abnormal noise. This time the pilots were in agreement with me. We changed the water extractor and gave an engine ground run. The vibration levels had reduced. Now was the crucial test flight, the last day of the production year. The aircraft was test flown, and when it landed, the pilot gave us thumbs up sitting in the cockpit itself. It was a huge relief. The additional second aircraft was also produced, again in 10 days. That year, a company met the sales target. Our final assembly team was a happy lot. Their achievements had brought them new self-confidence. Two things I realized from the event. We can do wonders if all the stakeholders join together and accept challenges in our workplace. Second, I have learned that I was able to think and plan my activities very well when I constantly asked myself, what next? I could think ahead and prepare for the next activity well in time. Later on, the OAM in UK came to know of our feat and sent us congratulatory letters. We received congratulatory letters from our GM, from our CEO, and from the pilots. We had further news that the OEM was sending their production team to study our working methods in our factory. Thank you.